everyone, my name's Annette, and you might know me on social media as Nettersplays. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the games that I acquired for the month of May and that I actually did manage to play. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about these 10 games, and each game I'll go ahead and let you know what my, not final, but just my impressions are of the games by playing them. How they felt in the gameplay, if I liked it or not, or just anything else as far as the quality, components of, or anything else like that. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and start first. So, well, the first game we'll talk about is this game called Isle of Trains, and it's a train game, but it's a card game. It's a simple little card game, and I'll show you the cards. But it's really neat. I like the artwork. It's kind of like got this weird little like mustard kind of color composition to it. But of course you got like these little different train pieces. And you can get like the engines and different types of engines. And so what you're doing is you have these cards in the middle of the board. It's a 2 to 4 player game. And so you have these different like this map, pretty much. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to complete these different routes, and they require certain resources on them. So for example, this card right here requires like 2 oils to be completed on your train. So you have to travel and you have to complete 2 oils. And so how do you get oil? So basically you have like these engines, and then you could go ahead and tag along some cargo on it. And on the cargo, you can go ahead and put like certain resources on them. So these cards are actually multi-use cards, so they resemble different things. So you can use these cards for either the engine piece themselves, the part of the train, or you can use them as a resource on top, and you put that resource in the train. So you can use it like that, and it's really interesting. It also scores you points too. So you're trying to score points, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game, either by delivering these different resources or making the best engine of a train, and whoever accomplishes that at the end of the game is the best, I guess, engineer. So that is Isle of Trains. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really quick little light card game. And yeah, I could see myself just throwing this in my purse and just taking it along with me. So, yep, Isle of Trains. Another game that I acquired too at the flea market at the board game convention was Belle of the Ball. So I acquired this game simply because, I mean, who doesn't want to be the Belle of the Ball? And it's also by Daniel Solis. So it's a 2 to 5 player game, and basically what you're trying to do is you have these different like characters in the game, and you're trying to invite them to the ball. And so these different characters you can see here, and it's beautiful artwork too. And so hopefully you could see that right there. And so the artwork of these different characters, you got 60 cards, and each card is so different. And so each card, for example, this lady right here, she wants to talk about defense and tea and some other stuff. And so what you're going to do is you're going to try to pair her up with someone else that might like to talk about the same things. Like this other lady, she likes to talk about tea too. So if you acquire like 4 members here, then you can go ahead and count those that are matching. So it's a really simple little card game, and it's something that I could see myself like playing with younger players, and also with players that are new to gaming. And it's a really light kind of silly kind of card game. So yeah, that's Belle of the Ball. It's a pretty light, fun game. Another game that I also acquired too is actually a gift. I got this game 101, and I got this game from someone online that I met, and his name is Charmbo. I met him on Instagram, and he actually mailed me this game. And it's a game by Grail Games, and it's Australian. That's where he's from. And it's from Australia production company where they produce this one game. So it's really neat because The rulebook, of course, comes with like a floppy disk. If you don't know what that is, then I guess I'm dating myself. But it's a really light little card game, and you can play it with just 2-player game only. I got the expansion for it too, so I could also play it as a solo game. But it's got these like 1s or 0s, and so each person gets the same deck. You shuffle them up, and then you just go ahead and play the cards, and you can either like do certain commands on the cards, and based on where they're located on this huge grid system, you can either like knock other cards out, or you can acquire another of your cards in this certain row. And then if you win the most amount of rows or points, then you win the game. So it's a really neat little 2-player game. I found it really interesting, and it's really simple to teach and play along. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and if you're watching Charbo, thank you. And so another game that I acquired too is Space Hulk Death Angel. So I got this one at the flea market, and I've been wanting this game for a really long time because occasionally I like to play solo games, and so I've heard this game is a great solo game, and I heard it's also a super hard solo game. So it's not just for 1 player, but it can play up to 8 players too. And I imagine it to be really difficult with 8 players. And so it's a game where you have these soldiers, and you're going along these like different rooms where these aliens are coming at you, and you're just trying to plan out this system with your other militants, and you're trying to blast away these aliens and hopefully not get eaten or killed or anything like that. And it's a really like hard game, and it's you can try to plan it out, but then again, there's this one die in this game, and it can be so brutal. So yeah, it's a really fun actually solo game, and I have not yet beat it, and I don't know if I will or not, but if I do, I'll make sure to post it online. So yeah, that's Space Hulk Death Angel. I liked it. Another game that I acquired is Hocus. So this game, I actually got to meet the designer, and one of the designers, his name is Grant. And so I went ahead and met him at the board gaming convention, and I got to play this game with him. And so in this game, it's kind of like poker in the sense that you're trying to get the same type of hands in poker. But the cool thing about this, besides the artwork, is the fact that it seems like something really familiar, because you know what a full house is, you know what a straight is from playing poker or hearing about it or anything. So it's easy to explain to just people who've never really played card games or board games. You just tell them, oh, okay, well, of course, if you get a full straight, like a flush or something like that, then, you know, it'll beat off like a pair or something. So they're really familiar with that kind of mechanic. But this one actually has advanced rules where you can add in like spell cards, and then you can go ahead and add in, I think there's like 8 different factions that you can add, so there's a lot of replay value in this game. I've played it with 2 players, I played it with 3 players, I think I played it with 4 players too, and I think it's a great game at all those different player counts. So yeah, I was really impressed with this game. I had to get it, and yeah, Grant was pretty awesome too, so thanks Grant for making this game. So yeah, so Hocus, if you haven't tried it, you should try it. Another game that I bought was this game I bought for Mitch. He plays a lot on his phone, and he plays a lot of Neuroshima Hex. So I don't play this game, but I thought, like, hey, you know, like, just show me how to play this, and so that way we can play this game together. So he introduced me to this game, and I thought it was really neat. I like this game because it's kind of abstract. Is you got this hexagonal board, you can see here. So you got this hex, and then you're trying to put different pieces on it. And there's 4 different factions, so you could be one sort of military group, another one that has like a lot of range shots, another one that has a lot of defense or a lot of movements and such. And so you pick a faction, you play these pieces, and then you battle. So you have this two phases in this game where you're trying to set your pieces on the board, and you're trying to maneuver them in certain areas to attack your opponent in certain times in the game. And then the second phase is when you go into battle, and that's when all the pieces that are on the board are just gonna fight. And so there's like different time periods when they're activated. And so Neuroshima Hex is actually, I thought it was a really cool abstract game. I liked it at 2 players. I haven't played it with 3 or 4. I'm not sure if I want to play it with 3 or 4. I thought it was a great 2-player game. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it too. So if you haven't tried it, you should try it. You could try it on your phone, or you could just buy the game. So another game that I managed to play this month is Above and Below. So it's by Ryan Lucat. He's the one that made 8 Minute Empire, and you could tell by this artwork, it's just so lovely. It's really nice and pretty, and also the components inside the game, they're really great. But what makes this game different is this book right here. So what you're basically doing, it's an encounter book in this game, is you have these different characters, and so it's a really thematic, like, story type telling game. And so you have these different characters, and it's a worker placement. You're trying to rebuild a community, and so you're trying to train different people. You're trying to acquire different people and train them to become better builders or better explorers. And what you're doing is you're building houses, you're gaining resources, and then you're exploring caves and caverns. And then what happens is when you're exploring these caves, you open this book and you roll this die, and according to what the die roll is, you have all these different stories. And so one player is going to go ahead and read these stories to the other player, and that player has option either A or B. So then it becomes really thematic, and so if you choose to help this one group of people in your adventure, then you get this outcome. If you choose not to and follow a different path in your adventure, you get a different outcome. So you acquire different types of resources or materials or coins. So it's a really neat kind of game. I don't have a game like it, and I really like the storytelling in Above and Below. So yeah, if you haven't tried a story type telling game, you should actually give this a shot. It's a really neat and different type of game. Another game that I've been playing a lot recently is Imperial Settlers. So I got this at the flea market, and I've heard a lot about this. I couldn't pass this up because I just love the artwork. And I found out with this game, actually, it's a really great engine building game. And I love engine building games. And it's a civilization where you're trying to gain different resources, build different, like, buildings, and then you get these different features and actions. And then you just keep on building and building, and then you have another opponent who's, like, a barbarian, and you could be, like, a Roman Empire. And so it's asymmetrical. You're all doing different things, you're acquiring different things. You have your own personal decks, and whoever gets the most amount of points and is most efficient with their players gets to win. So yeah, I've really actually been enjoying this game a lot. I've been playing it only with 2 players, and I found it to be great. I think with more players, I've heard that it works with more players, but it's best with 2. So yeah, I'm interested in playing with the other factions, like the Japanese and some other factions that it comes with. I forget. But there's expansions to this, but yeah, it seems like there's a lot of play in this one box. So that's Imperial Settlers. So another game that I acquired too at the board gaming convention is this game called Leaving Earth. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, and it's a game where you're trying to explore space and trying to compete with other countries too. So it's supposed to be in between the time of 1956 and 1976, when space exploration was very competitive between countries, like the USSR and the United States, and even China and Japan. So then what you're trying to do in this game is you're trying to get the right amount of education to get rockets in space. Once you explore with rockets and you're managing to orbit the Earth, or you're trying to get astronauts up in space or space probes, then you try accomplishing even higher feats, like trying to get a man on moon, or trying to get samples from Mars or something like that. The thing is that it kind of deals with an alternate history, because during this time period, no one really knew like what was on the moon. And no one really knew what was out in space, if you would actually disintegrate because of radiation, or if, you know, the moon was just filled with a whole bunch of bacteria that would just eat you up as soon as you landed there. So no one really knew what was out there. And so this kind of has that kind of randomness, you know, what if I get there? What will I find? So it has a little bit of alternate history along with this game. The really cool thing too is that it has this really cool instruction book or rule book, but it's the same artwork that was actually used for the space missions during that time. So it's really thematic in that sense. It has a whole ton of history that you can look into in the rule book, and then it has the actual astronauts that have gone into space, and the actual Sputnik like probes that were actually sent off into space, and also different satellites and different rockets that were sent up there too. So it's really historical, and it's really math heavy. So there's a lot of math involved with this game too. Dealing with weight, dealing with amount of fuel, dealing with energy. So it's a really scientific, mathematical game where if you like that kind of stuff, you'll really enjoy this game. However, if you're not into math and adding and figuring out these different, like, how am I going to get this space rocket here? I'm gonna go ahead and need this amount of energy to get there, and this amount of fuel, and you know, how many rockets will actually let me get there. So it's a compounded effect, and it's really neat in this game. So I highly recommend it if you want to find like a really thematic game. It does take a long time to play. We played it with 4 players, and we played it on the easy level, and it was about 2.5 hours. But it was really great. Like, we got involved with the designer of the game, and he really explained it well. So yeah, so try looking into this game if it suits your fancy. So yeah. Another game that I acquired too, and I really enjoyed, was Concordia. So I managed to play this with both 2 players and 5 players, and I really enjoy this game. It's a game dealing with everyone getting the same amount of hand cards, and what you're doing with these cards is you're playing a card each turn. And each card lets you do a certain action, whether it being acquiring resources, expanding on a map, or gaining different cards to add to your deck. And so what you're doing is you're exploring this massive map. And you can either explore by land, by sending your colonists across the land, or across the sea, getting different resources in different locations, and also acquiring these different cards too to add to your deck for different actions. And so you're competing with the other players for area. So it's got area control in it. It's got deck building in it too. It's got resource management as well. So in the beginning of this game, you know, everyone's doing about the same kind of thing, and then it just develops into different areas. And you're scoring a little bit of points, but then at the very end, you're just scoring a ton of points. So, yeah, it's a really fun game. I really enjoyed it. It's a game that you can easily teach, I found. It's not very intimidating. I mean, it could be very intimidating, but after like the first 1 or 2 playthroughs, it actually clicks. So it's one of those games that, you know, could be a little bit intimidating at first, but it just works. So yeah, that's Concordia. Alright, well, I hope that you really enjoyed watching this video of all the games that I acquired and that I managed to play. I also acquired a whole bunch of other games that I didn't manage to play last month, and I'll leave the link down below so you can watch that. And also, you could follow me too by subscribing, or you can follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on Meeples Included. So I'll leave the Meeples Included link down below. It's a website and a YouTube channel too, where you can follow a whole bunch of different contributors where I contribute, and a whole bunch of other great people too, where they also just give out different videos about strategies, reviews, or just future games that'll come out, or just general vlogs and thoughts of different characters too. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave all the links below. And thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. So I'll talk to you later, and I'll see you next month. Bye.